Hi, how are you doing today? This is Amy Hamilton, the author of The Project Manager, Life is a Project. And today what we are going to be talking about is CVs and resumes, tips for you to get noticed and to make sure that your resume makes it to the top of the pile. So I will be monitoring our Facebook Live session today. If you have any questions, just go ahead and post them, and I will take a look periodically to screen through and see what you guys had to say, what kind of questions you have. I recently wrote an article on CV and resume tips, and I think this is really important for this time of year. I've been getting so many questions about this topic because as project managers, we begin a project and we end the project. We know every project we do is going to come to an end. So unless you're working for a company where you manage projects internally, a lot of times we end up in positions where we are looking for new work, new positions. This is so normal in our industry. So project managers, one of the things is constantly keep your projects up to date. Make sure that you're keeping your resume and your CV filled with those list of projects as you're accomplishing them, what you're doing, what is going on with them. So you're not scrambling at the end of the project to put your CV together because you're trying to do your project closing phase. This is not the time to be updating your CV. Update it throughout the entire project life cycle so when your project ends, you are ready to go with that fabulous resume. But what does it take to have a fabulous resume, something that's going to get noticed? I put this first, and I think a lot of people have some discrepancy about it, but I'm okay, and I'm interested in hearing other people's feedback. But I put format. And you might say, why would you put format? Shouldn't it be content? Shouldn't it be what I do? And the answer is simple. As a hiring manager, when I see a huge stack of resumes, I go through, if it is painful, if it hurts your eyes, if it is not pleasant to look at, it goes to the bottom of the stack. So resumes that are elegant, resumes that scream, hey, this person is a professional, this gets attention. And you might want to think about it. If I'm going to be looking at your project reports for the next few months, I want to see something that I can easily discern. Because if you have a resume that's hard to read, what are your reports going to be like when I have to suffer through them? So one of the things you want to do is you want to balance your white space with your content. You want it to be something that is easy to read, because if it's just jam-packed in there and it's just nothing but information, it's going to hurt your eyes. You want to take a good use of bullets. You want to have bulleted comments. You want to have impact. You want to make sure that this is something that just has that wow factor that is going to catch the eye, but you don't want to overdo it. Sometimes I get resumes and they've got every logo of any place that the person has ever worked. It's too much. It's too busy. So it's that fine art of enough being enough. The other thing is you want to use bold and italics and underlining consistently, but you also want to use them effectively. If everything is like, bam, coming at you, bold, it's underlined, it's got bullets, it's just too much. And you're like, I can't process all this information at one time. So you want to create a resume that's elegant, something that the hiring manager says, oh, that is a good looking resume. And once you get to that point of being good looking, it's got that hiring manager's attention, what's the next thing they're going to do then? They're going to look at it for accuracy. They're going to look at it and what if you have just simple spell check? One of the saddest things I ever heard is we were going through a stack of resumes, and one of my fellow panelists said, wow, look at this resume. It's really good initially, but then it's all full of all these different spelling errors. Somebody didn't even like that person enough that they could give them their resume to proofread. We all have friends, somebody who could take a look at that resume, make sure that it's as accurate as possible. And this can be a real challenge if you're applying to a position that's not in your native language. So I encourage you to go to someone who speaks that language, that's their culture. And this is even important if English is your first language like me and you're an American. If you're British, it might not be the same English. So you want to make sure that the person who's going to review your resume, that native language is what they speak. So I'm here in Germany and Stuttgart, and the native language here, even though it's German, might be different than if I was applying to a job in Austria or Switzerland, where they also speak German, but there's different nuances to the language. So if you have access to it at all possible, find somebody who is indigenous to that area and who can proofread your resume for you. Another thing that you're going to want to do is review your dates and timelines and be able to explain gaps in your resume. like I said, in the project management business, it is very, very common for a project to end and to go on to another project. Sometimes we have overlapping projects. Sometimes we have gaps in our projects. You just want to be able to explain that either in your resume or be prepared on your interview, because those questions are going to come up. And I emphasize this one: proofread, proofread, proofread. You really, really want to make sure that this information is accurate, that it's everything you want it to have. And another key thing is, we go to projects, we do an outstanding job, we leave the project, we need to verify our references. So a lot of times, if you're on a project that came together just for that project, the project ends, everybody goes in different directions, you want to make sure that you reach out to those people and you're like, hey there, Mr. So-and-so, I worked with you on this project. What's your good contact information? How do I get a hold of you? How do I make sure that are you still willing to be a reference for me? This is very, very crucial in our line of work, because everyone is constantly moving around. And a great way to keep in contact with people is through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through those social media sites. Get a hold of them and say, hey, what's the best way to contact you? How can I still use you as a reference? You want that information to be accurate, because one thing that can be very frustrating for a hiring manager, they've interviewed you, they think, hey, this is going to be a great candidate, they cannot contact any of your references, now you're going back to the bottom of the stack. So the first thing we covered is you want to make sure that your resume is appealing. You want to make sure it has that wow factor. The other part is accuracy. You want to make sure every single thing about it is detailed. And now what I want to do is talk about the content. The content of your resume. So now that you've gotten their attention, what does it need to have in it? You want to make sure that you write it in a format that shows off what you accomplished. So don't just make it a list of job duties, because you know what? Every project manager can do a Gantt chart, right? I mean, how many people out there can't do one, right? So we know this. We know you are a project manager. We know that you understand how to do a project chart, or we know you know how to do a Gantt chart. We know you know the basics. Hopefully you know earned value management, some of those things that we've covered in some of these previous project management sessions. But what stands you apart? Did you accomplish your last project under schedule? That would be awesome. I tell you, accomplishing ahead of schedule is so, so rare. What about under budget? Oh my gosh. I mean, if you can get that across and say, on my last project, the estimated budget was $3 million. I completed that in only $2.5 million, saving the company $500,000. That is enormous, and that's going to get you noticed. That is going to make sure that your resume, which is already stellar, is getting you that interview. That's going to bring you right to the top. I cannot tell you how many projects I personally have had that have went over time, over budget, and that happens, people. I mean, we're project managers, it's part of the profession. So what you want to do is capture those wins that you've had, capture the successes, capture the impact of the project. It's so awesome. I was part of a project that went into operations, and now everybody refers to it like, oh, blah, 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 that project. Yeah, it's like a household word. And I'm like, I was part of the project inception for that project into the operational phase. And now when I hear people talk about it, I'm so proud. And a lot of times people have no idea that was, my team that started the project. And this is the kind of thing you want to do, is to be like, I was on an amazing project, and the project results had a long lasting impact. And it was visionary, and being on visionary projects can make a difference. So this is your time that you want to brag about yourself. Like I was saying, a lot of times I'm in a room and I hear people talk about their great accomplishments. This is, at a cocktail party, unless you're trying to network, it might not be the time to brag about yourself. But when you go out there and you are putting your resume out there, you can't say, oh yeah, and I did a good job. No, that's not the time, man. On your resume, this thing has to speak volumes about you. This thing needs to show the impact of what you did. It needs to really be saying, hey, this is the project manager that I should hire. This is the project manager. I'm going to call them right now and schedule that interview. These are all important tips, so I want to leave you with, make it pretty. Make it something that's attractive. The other thing is, make sure it's accurate. Make sure that you have it proofread. Make sure that all the dates line up. And the other thing is content. Make sure you're really displaying the impact and the best aspects of yourself. I have a question on here about why PMP. What I will tell you is I have 2 certifications that I think really make a difference when I'm looking for a job. One is I am a project management professional, which is the industry standard. There are a lot of jobs where people say if they don't have a PMP, they're not even on the list. So that's going to make you go to the top. And make sure that you have that PMP right there after your name. Amy S. Hamilton, project manager. The other thing is I'm in the IT industry, and part of it, everybody knows, I wrote an article on a couple months ago, the importance of cybersecurity from the inception of your project. So as a certified information security manager and a project management professional, I put those on my resume, and I have recruiters contacting me all the time. So make sure that you have that PMP in there. It's going to get you noticed, and it will get you noticed if you're competing against people who don't have a PMP. That could be the discerning variable. Why P6 and not MS Project? It all depends on what you're familiar with. I will tell you, I've personally been an instructor for MS Project, and that has helped me in my teaching credentials with Colorado Technical University. Question on PMP for software development as Agile. What I will say is PMP teaches traditional waterfall project management, but there's also an Agile certification through the Project Management Institute. So if you're doing software development, that might be a better methodology for you. I am not certified in Agile myself. I'm familiar with it. I've done a couple software development projects, but most of my work has been on the IT side. So Agile is a great option that you can get through PMI, which is recognized. There's also other providers. I think that, when you're going across the industry, you'll know for your industry what is the most recognized. And what I can say is for project managers across the world, it's PMP. If you're going to compete in the UK, though, there's a lot of people who use Prince 2. This is not as widely recognized, though, across the rest of the world. So if you're competing in Asia, if you're competing in the Middle East, if you're competing in the United States, Prince 2 will not get you very far. It's really the PMP that's the standard. MBAs are great, but a lot of people are cautious on the MBA if you don't have something else with them. One of the interesting things, I was just having a discussion with one of my coworkers today. His daughter is considering getting her master's in project management, and we were just discussing today the merits between getting your master's in an MBA or whether you should get it in project management. And the question is, where do you want to go? MBA is great for well-rounded business. If you're focused on project management, you want to focus on project management. And there's so many great schools out there offering online courses as well as brick and mortar courses or executive courses in project management. These are a lot of different things that you can incorporate. I really appreciate everybody's time. If you guys have more questions, I'll be reading through these afterwards. I'll take a look more for additional questions. The next time we talk in 2 weeks, I want to talk about interview skills. So you have that amazing resume. You've got wonderful layout to it. You have accuracy. You have content. Now the hiring manager's like, hey, I'm going to call you up. What do you do now? How do you handle the interviews? And what if there's multiple interviews? How do you do this? Interviewing is scary. There are people who say they're more afraid of interviews than anything in the world. There are people who say they would rather die than go to a job interview. That is really, really huge. So next time we talk, we are going to talk about your resume has made it through, your CV has made it through, you are ready for the interview. The question I have on cost, are you asking the cost about the PMP examination, or are you asking about the cost for like a resume service? And one of the things I can say is a resume service can be good if you're at that point in your career. If you're just initiating your career, a basic resume that you and your colleagues, can review it, help you to write, you can use a template off the internet is good. Sometimes you might need somebody, if you're changing careers, this is something else you can do, but I would encourage you not to pay for a professional resume service unless you're out there applying and you're just not getting jobs. I hope that answered your question on cost. And what I am going to say is thank you so much to Saeed, to the project management team. I love this community. I love the questions you guys ask me. You ask me a lot of hard questions. Sometimes I have to research it. Sometimes I know the answers. We are such a wonderful community as project managers. Thank you so much. This is Amy Hamilton, the project manager. Life is a project. Have a wonderful night.